Hi everybody, this is Craig Tanner for The Mindful Eye and the Daily Critique. Today's image was submitted by Bob, who's an intermediate photographer from Georgia. Bob says he was following his grandson around and tracking his curiosity while he played with the shovel. He shot this with a Nikon D2X, Tamron 17-50 f2.8 zoom, and exposed the file at ISO 200 at f4 and 1/750th of a second. To do the Photoshop work here, Bob used a trial version of CS5 and a Neiman Tones action for the black and white conversion. He has a question about composition. What do I think about that? What do I think about the conversion? And he says, I find the composition interesting, but then I'm biased by the subjects. Let's get right into it. One of the things I like right away about the image is that Bob got low. He got down at sort of eye level of his grandson. Extraordinary camera position to me is a very powerful way if we want to start to think about creating pictures that go beyond the ordinary. Choosing extraordinary camera positions is a powerful way to do that. I think about 4 basic extraordinary camera positions, one being low to high, so getting very low and shooting up. Another would be being very high and shooting low. Another would be just extremely close. And then the last one, in the most basic sense that I think about, is what Bob has chosen to do here. Going very low with the camera and then shooting low. I call that low to low. So powerful camera position could be a possible takeaway from the video today. Another thing that I'm enjoying here is just the idea of repetition. Bob has converted this to black and white, so we're starting to pay more attention because black and white is a form of an abstraction to the intrinsic forms, shapes, and those kinds of things. And when you look at what Bob's grandson is wearing, there's a real strong pattern of contrast with squares and rectangles playing out, and then that happens again in the background, sort of square shape here, square here, rectangle, rectangular negative space, and here, and then the shovel comes in here and breaks this up and starts to create a sense of triangles in both the positive space shape of the shovel and the negative space around on the ground, and that gets rhymed in this part of the shirt. So some really beautiful rhythms with qualities of line and geometric shapes. Another possible takeaway from the video today is hands and getting hands into portraits and choosing frames where the hands are very expressive, and this is just awesome, seeing the hand holding the shovel and the other hand that's balancing here. Very dynamic, really neat connection between the grandson and the subject of the shovel. With the look of the eyes here, I'm really enjoying that part of the picture. And the other thing that I really enjoy here is just the real strong feeling of this being a moment in time, just a documentary shot. That's one of the most powerful things about the camera, and one of the most powerful things that we do connected to the camera as human beings is to document the story of our lives. And what's more powerful than documenting the story of a child if you're a parent or a grandchild, and that's a real, obviously a very, very powerful part of this process for Bob. When I think about perfect world improvement for the image, I want to go back to something I've been trying to sort of push, is something that you might try when you're processing your images, which is going into your adjustment layers and going into curves, and in the early part, or maybe the beginning part of your work, to just pull from the middle of the curve and dramatically brighten and darken and see what different areas of the image might look like if you made a huge luminance change. And this could be very, very powerful in a black and white photograph, where we have, I think, a lot of times a lot more leeway to make these kinds of radical luminosity changes after the fact. And one of the things that happens here when I dramatically brighten the image and start to overexpose the background and lose contrast and line back there is, for me, the main subject, which is Bob's grandson, starts to come forward quite a bit more, and I start to pay a lot more attention to him. I still have some information in the background there, but it really changes the way that I look at this, and it really changes the emphasis. Even though the background is fairly simple, there's still textures back there. There's still contrast changes. We're so drawn to line. Line by definition is contrast. Contrast is the weightiest thing in our pictures, and there's a lot of contrast and geometric form and things that really excite us visually as human beings in the background. And by simply taking this shot and pushing it to the point where the background's starting to go towards white, I think it starts to become a lot more powerful. How far you want to go and how much texture you want to leave back there, I think is a matter of personal taste. One of the amazing things about black and white is that in a black and white image, we can a lot of times afford to have a lot of white, because white doesn't have nearly the visual power in black and white that it does in color, because in color, white represents the absence of color, so it's a double whammy. It's contrast, it's very bright, those are two of the most visually heavy things, and then it becomes the absence of color, so it becomes a conceptual form of contrast, and white takes on a lot of power. And we, I think, have the leeway from design standpoint and visual weight standpoint to really brighten this one way up. And I'm just going to leave it there for right now. I think you could apply this locally. You could go in a lot of different directions, but I just wanted to make that basic point of just that change to this image, how it might have a big effect on where we look in the image. Another thing that I might do here is some digital gardening, going back to the idea of contrast. And I've kind of done this out of order. We really should have done this first. We can still do it now. I'm going to copy the background and stay on this layer here, and then just come down in here with a healing brush in a rough way and just take out some of these ideas that are sitting on the ground. Let's see if we can get away with that there. And we did. It's rough. You know, I might not do it exactly in this way as I'm doing it now, but I just wanted to take away some of those ideas. And we might even come in and tone some of the texture down in some of these places in here, and then see what a difference that might make. Again, in terms of bringing the portrait subject forward in the image. And so much of the time, that's what I'm going for. We could continue to work on that. We might come in and take away some of this contrast. And that didn't work. I could switch to the clone stamp here, and just real quick, let's just do it. Let's, sorry about that. I'm not going to start over. I'm going to sample and take that away, and we'll turn the eyeball on and off again. You can see as I continue to simplify those little areas of contrast, it really has a big simplifying effect on the image. And you can continue to do that in these areas of the image. And over in here, maybe cleaning some of these things up if you were so inclined. It could really help to continue to simplify the image. One of the things that I think about quite a bit when I'm shooting portraits, it's a little bit like macro, so a lot of times you can think at a real basic level. I have my portrait subject, and then I have my background. What are things that I can do to my background that will support my subject without overwhelming the subject? And to me, that was a really big part of the video today. Love where Bob started out here. Really great documentary moment, some really beautiful rhythms, awesome camera position here for this particular subject. I want to say a big thank you to Bob for sharing this image with us on The Mindful Eye and the Daily Critique. Hope to see you again real soon on The Mindful Eye.